r/Nosleep. Posted by u/archives-h. I work for a company that studies cursed places. Workers must follow specific rules to survive. Part 2. Entry 2, Plastic. Another day, another mission. What a weird day today was. It was extremely weird. I need to stop saying weird. It's weird. Damn, I did it again. Anyway, today was a long day. I'm not even quite sure what happened today. Well, as always, it's good to start at the beginning. It was around 5 in the morning when Cassie decided to wake us all up for a mission. It was a bit early for that, honestly, and Canopy and I had suspicions that this was either really important, or that Cassie had misread a mission file like so many times before. Turns out we were right. The mission called for us to wake at 9, not 5. Nobody ever knows how Cassie manages to read numbers wrong, but she just does. None of us got any more sleep and we went to burning time. I read old mission files, Canopy went to writing his book, Cassie went off for a run along the beach, and Quint, our doctor, just sort of stared at us. That's 4 people, and I told you before we had 5 on the team. The last person on our team is named Grayson Stone, but we all call him Priest. He's an oddity on the team, but we all get along well. He's a bit absent-minded and aloof, and he makes a point to pray for us on our missions. He likes to crack these weird jokes where he calls Jesus Jesus, but overall, he's a great guy. According to my own personal investigation into him, I was curious, okay? I discovered that he was a pastor at some church out in some small town. His town had been plagued with mysterious corpses where victims had lost their faces. Not cut off, but just smooth, like a mannequin's. The priest was off teaching some students the wonders of Jesus, so nobody's seen much of him. Once we all killed time, and 9 arrived, Cassie sprang to action, and we began the day. According to the file, she began, "Today, we are tasked with exploring an area of forest that strange events occur. A town bordering the forest reports strange noises at night, mysterious lights, and loud thumping outside their houses when there's nothing there." "Are we interviewing people?" Quinn asked. "Yes, one of you will, and the other 2 will be exploring the forest," Cassie informed. "I call interviews," I yell. "No, Quint will be dealing with that," Cassie countered. "Quint has a certain effect over people that you don't have." "Is that an insult or a compliment?" Quint joked. "So me and Rainey are exploring?" Canopy questioned. "We may get lost. The Watchtower Central Command has developed these suits that are meant to repel time displacement and deter magic. Or so they say." "Fun. Gotta rely on the Watchtower." "Well, let's go." Cassie told us to take our sedatives so we would be transported to the location. We weren't allowed to know where it was, so I couldn't tell you even if I wanted to. But the world shifted from the black of sleep to this pretty town, all covered in this thick blanket of white, pure snow. It seemed like those towns from those old fantasy novels brought to life, complete with shops that were painted to look old and rich. Quint bid us farewell and went off to interview the residents. Cassie gave me and Canopy the rules to the forest and told us to go explore. According to it, we were basically to explore and document any weird happenings. Rule 1. Enter the forest with the suit on. It will activate when you wear it, and green lights will turn on and off that tell you it is active. If no flashing lights appear, say the word Kaltasa, and it will turn on. Do not let the suit run out of battery. It has 3 phases of battery life: green if full, orange for medium, and last, red for critical. When it reaches red, leave. Rule 2. You may encounter flashing lights in the trees, just out of the corner of your eyes. It won't be noticeable at first, but the lights may start to become more noticeable over time. You may take photos of the lights. If you see the lights in the center of your vision, do not follow them. Rule 3. You may hear thumping occasionally, like a large beast is approaching. Record these sounds. Accompanying the thumping will be noises of a large animal. The noises may go towards you, but nothing will happen. Rule 4. There may be a strange cabin in the woods. If this building appears, document it as best as possible. No set of rules exist for this building, so take caution. Rule 5. You may hear loved ones calling out to you inside the forest. Do not follow them. Do not listen to the mushrooms. Do not pick the mushrooms. Those rules seem fun, I murmured. Ready to go? Let's move out. Canopy cheered, checking his suits to make sure it was active. And so, we entered that weird forest. I need to limit me saying weird. As soon as we entered the forest, We heard the noises of the town become muffled, growing quieter by each step into the forest. Soon, we couldn't hear anything at all. "We're in," I radioed to Cassie. No response. "I repeat, we're in," I repeated. No answer. We assumed that we were either on radio silence, or it was the forest messing with us. The forest, however, was amazing. It was a marvel, beauty bursting at every point and edge. The birds were colorful, chirping and dancing in the trees, all happy and in the wild. Canopy noted that some of the birds were classified as extinct in the wild, and that some of the birds couldn't have been able to thrive in the forest. As we walked deeper into the forest, I noted that it was getting hotter, a strange contrast from the snowy village. We began to see mushrooms everywhere. These weren't like any I had ever seen before. These were the color of flesh, a tan color with bits of reds and blues dotted all over them. I bent down to take a photo and to inspect the thing, and then I realized I could hear something from it. Voices. Cassie's voice, saying, "Don't listen to it," Canopy warned, reminding me of the rules. I knew the rules, but the voice, it sounded so pleading, mesmerizing. It was like hearing an exact replica of Cassie, but instead of what I thought of her. I took some more photos with the aid of Canopy, and that's when it hit me: the mushroom was shaped like a mouth, and it seemed to slightly move, vibrate, talk. We continued deeper into the forest, where it became more misty and humid, like tropical rainforests. There were no birds here, oddly, but there should have been. Instead, we found lizards and other reptiles covering the place. Everywhere we stepped, it seemed, a snake or lizard would dart out of the way to avoid us crushing it. There were flowers on the trees, which I had noticed were thicker at the edges of the forest. They seemed darker and more full with life. Once, I was inspecting one I was surprised by parts of the bark changing color and revealing a chameleon that hid far too well. It was magnificent. We explored further, until I started seeing the lights, just always out of the corner of my eye. They were flashes that always seemed to linger a little too long, and they were just bright enough to be annoying, but easy enough to forget. Canopy snapped a picture of the environment, and when we reviewed it, we saw that around the edges a dozen or so orbs of light, just twinkling. With the strange lights, came the loud thumping of a strange beast from afar, and the loud, peaceful moans it made into the bright, hot air. It seemed like a gentle beast, or, at least, it sounded like one. Slowly, we heard the thumps grow louder, and the space between each thump got shorter, until it became this rhythmic beat, a calculated stampede heading towards us. The peaceful song the faraway beast was singing reminded me of a whale song. We heard it soon disappear, and luckily, I had recorded the entire event. Later, however, with the help of an old colleague who worked in marine biology, I found out that it was indeed some sort of whale song. But what confused me the most was that it appeared to be a song of panic, of fear. Canopy wanted to find out where the beast had come from, and at the time, I agreed. I wish I had known the beast, or whatever that thing was afraid of something. We first noticed that the world had become eerily quiet when the trees started to become thin and pale, like skeletons. Next, I was drinking my bottle of water when we reached a clearing where it snowed, but it wasn't snow. As I drank, one of the falling particles ended up in my canteen, and when I drank, I found it salty and distasteful. So salty, in fact, that I threw up. Canopy let me drink his bottle as he collected the falling salt for evidence. The salt was cold, impossibly so. The trees behind us were warm, so the salt should have caused the trees to die. In the center of the clearing was a cabin. A cabin that I realized hadn't been there when we first looked at the clearing. A loud buzz appeared from our suits, and the flashing lights we wore turned a dark orange, signal that we had used half of our battery. "Let's explore that cabin," Canopy suggested. We heard the thumps come from there, and the rules said to explore. Are you sure?" I warned. "It just popped out of nowhere. That's why we have these suits." I shrugged. We headed towards the cabin, taking salt samples as we went. Later, we found out the closer we got to the structure, the saltier the salt was. Our doctor and scientist, Quint Magnus, could find no explanation to it. The cabin's door was closed, but when we both looked away to take a sample, it was open when we looked back, inviting us in. Canopy grabbed a trusty army knife he carried with him, and I took out a pistol from my backpack. Canopy used his army knife's flashlight to light the way, and inside, we saw a living room oddly clean and new. It was just like the house we had investigated yesterday, and knowing that sent chills up my spine. A fire was lit, but somehow, it didn't seem to produce light. Where what should have been were these blocks of salt. Or, as we found out later, solidified salt mixed with plastic. There were 2 chairs facing it, a red one, and a gray. A clean cushion was on it, as well as a messy, left-behind blanket. We took a photo and continued exploring the cabin. Excluding the living room, there were only 2 bedrooms and a kitchen. First, we explored the kitchen, a small little place with some newly sharpened knives and food. There was freshly baked bread on a counter next to the sink, but when we touched it we realized it wasn't food at all but plastic, so incredibly detailed it seemed like food. The knives weren't sharp either, rather, like the food, plastic. So were the apples and oranges. When we turned the sink on, this black, slimy liquid came out. It was crude oil. And crude oil is one of the ingredients used to make plastic. Still, we ignored the warning signs and explored one of the rooms. Inside, we saw a child's bedroom. There wasn't much but a toy chest and some books that weren't books. These too were fake. Plastic. A computer was next to it, fake, but stuck on this screen that just listed a bunch of symbols. Canopy and I took a photo, hoping that Cassie could crack it if it was a code. We were about to leave when I saw a strand of something underneath the child's bed. It was hair. Or, so it seemed. Canopy tugged at me to leave, but then he noticed it too, and the 2 of us just stared at it. And then we noticed it wasn't just hair, there was a silhouette of a person underneath the bed, hiding. Slowly, we backed out, turning to see the living room and exit. Only, something very bad had changed. In the 2 seats were people, no, mannequins. They sat as if they were people, unmoving, but still harboring an eerie lifelike quality to them. We froze, watching the room. In the kitchen, which was visible, we saw 2 other mannequins that seemed to be frozen in time, chopping fake vegetables. When we looked back at the living room, it appeared that the not people had shifted, not turning to look at us. And instead of 2, there were 3 faceless things just staring at us, faceless. Canopy bolted for the exit, grabbing my hand before he did and causing me to run with him. But as we reached the exit, I was jerked back and felt cold, plastic hands on the back of my neck. Fingers were rustling through my hair, but when I looked and turned to fight who or what had grabbed me, nothing was there. The living room didn't even have the mannequins anymore. Just 2 chairs facing away from us, towards the fire. Except I noticed one odd detail: the 2 chairs, red and gray, were switched. Our suits buzzed, and we saw its battery go to red. We wasted no time in running back the way we came. When we reached the exit, we saw Cassie and Quid joking around. They turned to face us to greet us when they saw our faces, pale, and out of breath. We all decided to leave immediately and return to Watchtower 7C. I'm not sure what's going on, but I do know one thing, a key constant in the 2 cases I've shared so far. Plastic.